It was a warm spring afternoon in Brentwood, the kind of day where the sunlight felt almost like a gentle blessing rather than an intrusion. Brentwood was a quiet, well-mannered town, known for its tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and a sense of calm that rarely broke its surface. People moved at an unhurried pace, neighbors exchanged polite nods, and children played along the sidewalks under the easy watch of their parents. Tucked into the heart of downtown Brentwood stood Hamilton Jewelers, a sleek, high-end jewelry store with shining glass windows that reflected the golden afternoon light and polished wooden interiors that whispered of wealth and exclusivity. Hamilton Jewelers was the place where the affluent came to celebrate anniversaries, to mark promotions, to select engagement rings that cost more than some people made in a year. It was a name spoken with reverence, a destination for those who belonged to a certain class. And today, Ariana Foster had decided it was the place where she would find the perfect birthday gift for her mother. Ariana pushed open the heavy glass door, the bell chiming overhead as she stepped inside. The warm light glinting off dozens of display cases filled with delicate necklaces, shimmering bracelets, and rings that sparkled like captured stars. She wore a gray hoodie over a neatly pressed navy polo, paired with clean jeans and white sneakers. Her hair was pulled into a high bun, framing her youthful face in a way that highlighted both her calm maturity and the quiet excitement that danced in her dark eyes. She was only 17, but there was a steadiness about her, a poise built from years of carrying herself with careful pride. She had saved for months, working long shifts after school at the busy corner coffee shop, carefully tucking away every tip, every spare dollar, until she had enough to buy something truly special. Her mother deserved nothing less. As Ariana moved further into the store, her heart light with anticipation, she felt it. The subtle but undeniable shift in the atmosphere. The gleaming hardwood floors seemed almost too loud beneath her sneakers. Conversations paused ever so slightly. Behind one of the glass counters, a middle-aged saleswoman in a fitted blazer gave her a brief glance, her eyes skimming Ariana's hoodie and jeans with the faintest flicker of disapproval, before she returned to arranging a tray of earrings. Two older women, their wrists heavy with gold bangles, shared a look over the tops of their designer handbags before whispering behind manicured hands. Ariana felt the weight of those glances settle across her shoulders like an unwelcome cloak. She kept her posture straight, forcing herself to stay focused. She was here for a reason. She belonged here just as much as anyone else. Taking a slow, calming breath, Ariana walked toward the nearest display case, where a beautiful array of silver necklaces shimmered under the lights. She spotted the one she had come for almost immediately, a slender, elegant chain with a small, heart-shaped pendant. Simple, classic, timeless. It was perfect. Her fingers itched to reach out to ask to see it up close, but she knew better than to move too quickly. Every step, every gesture, every word had to be deliberate, measured, respectful. It was a lesson ingrained deep by years of careful instruction from her mother. Always be polite, always be composed, always give no one any excuse to doubt your right to be where you are. Ariana waited patiently at the counter, hoping to catch the eye of a clerk. She offered a small, polite smile to the nearest employee, a woman arranging watches under a spotlight, but the woman didn't smile back. Instead, she turned away, busying herself behind the register. Ariana's smile faltered just a fraction, but she held it in place. She would not let a few cold shoulders steal the joy of this moment. She had earned this. Her mother's birthday was just a week away, and Ariana had imagined it so clearly. The surprise, the wide smile, the way her mother would clasp the necklace with that look of pride that always made Ariana's chest feel too full to speak. After another minute of awkward waiting, Ariana gently cleared her throat and said, in her calmest, most courteous voice, "Excuse me, could I please see the silver heart pendant in the front case?" Her request was met with a pause, a flicker of annoyance from the clerk, who finally turned to her with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The woman gave Ariana a once-over, her gaze lingering a beat too long on the hoodie and jeans before nodding stiffly. She unlocked the case and lifted the necklace carefully onto a velvet tray, sliding it toward Ariana with a guarded caution usually reserved for items being handled by small children or reckless tourists. As Ariana leaned forward to admire the necklace, she ignored the whispers from a pair of customers browsing nearby. She focused only on the gleam of the silver under the store lights, the way the heart pendant seemed to catch and hold every stray ray of sunlight. This was it. This was the one. She straightened up and smiled, her voice bright but steady. "I'd like to buy it, please." She slipped her wallet from her back pocket and opened it, revealing neatly folded bills, hard-earned money from weeks of working the early morning rush, smiling through rude customers and sore feet. But even as she spoke, even as she held out her payment, Ariana could feel it. That low, simmering tension, the unspoken question lingering in the clerk's narrowed eyes. "Where did you get that money? Who are you to shop here?" For a moment it seemed as if the woman hesitated, her fingers hovering just above the cash, as if debating whether to even accept it. Ariana stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest, but her face remained serene. She would not be the one to falter. Not today. And so the transaction, the simple, joyous transaction Ariana had dreamed of, hung suspended in the balance, teetering on the knife's edge of silent assumptions and invisible barriers, ready to tilt at the slightest nudge. The air inside Hamilton Jewelers shifted almost imperceptibly as Patricia Evans approached the counter. Mid-50s, sharp-featured with perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a fitted blazer that announced her seniority without a word, Patricia moved with a kind of brittle authority that demanded attention. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor, her presence slicing through the room's faint murmur like a knife through silk. As she reached Ariana, she didn't offer the standard bright smile reserved for paying customers, nor did she bother with polite formalities. Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly, scanning Ariana from head to toe, lingering too long on the gray hoodie, the plain jeans, the well-worn sneakers. It was an appraisal, not of interest or service, but of judgment, thinly disguised beneath a veneer of professionalism. Ariana met Patricia's gaze steadily, refusing to shrink under the scrutiny, but she felt the now familiar knot begin to tighten in her chest. She knew that look. She had seen it too many times before, in too many places where someone decided with a single glance that she didn't belong. Still, Ariana kept her tone even, polite as she gestured toward the necklace. "I'd like to purchase this, please," she said, lifting her wallet slightly to show she was ready. Patricia's smile, if it could even be called that, barely lifted the corners of her mouth. "You know how much that costs, right?" Her voice carried a sharp edge, a condescension so fine it could almost have been mistaken for genuine inquiry, if not for the unmistakable bite beneath it. Ariana's throat tightened, but she forced a small nod, keeping her voice calm. "Yes, ma'am, I do." She opened her wallet carefully, revealing the crisp bills she had worked so hard to collect, organized neatly, her hands steady despite the burning humiliation creeping into her cheeks. Patricia's eyes flicked down to the money, with a look that wasn't relief or approval, but suspicion, as though the very sight of it confirmed her worst assumptions. Still, she moved with deliberate slowness, finally reaching for the velvet tray. She lifted the delicate chain with 2 fingers, her movements exaggeratedly cautious, as if handling something dangerous rather than a simple piece of jewelry. Ariana leaned closer, her heart thudding with a mix of excitement and unease, the weight of every glance, every whispered murmur from the surrounding customers pressing down on her back. She extended her hand carefully, meaning only to admire the piece more closely. But as she did, the bracelet slipped from Patricia's fingers, landing softly on the polished floor with a faint metallic clink. The sound, harmless and minor, seemed to echo monstrously in the hushed space, stretching into a silence that crackled with sudden electricity. Before Ariana could even react, Patricia gasped sharply, stepping back as if Ariana had thrown something at her. Her voice rang out, shrill and accusing, slicing through the stunned quiet of the store. "Thief!" she cried, pointing an accusing finger at Ariana, her face twisted into a mask of outrage. "I knew it! I knew you were up to something the second you walked in here." Ariana froze, blinking in shock, her mouth opening to protest, to explain that it was an accident, that she had done nothing wrong. But Patricia didn't give her the chance. Her hand darted for the store's phone, and within seconds she was speaking into it, her voice sharp and urgent. Yes, police, right away. We have an attempted theft at Hamilton Jewelers. Yes, a young black female wearing a gray hoodie. She tried to snatch a silver necklace right off the counter. Yes, she's still here. Dangerous. Dangerous. The word punched the breath from Ariana's lungs more effectively than any blow. Dangerous when all she had done was stand there, wallet open, cash ready, dreams trembling in her hands. Dangerous when she had smiled politely and she had saved every spare dollar for months for this moment. Dangerous when she had only ever wanted to make her mother's birthday special. Around her, the atmosphere shifted again, the unease in the room hardening into suspicion, into fear. Customers who had barely noticed her presence before now stared openly, some stepping back, clutching their purses or whispering to each other in low, scandalized voices. The security guard, previously lounging near the entrance with a posture of casual disinterest, now straightened, his gaze sharpening as he slowly began to edge closer. Ariana felt her body go rigid, every muscle locking into place as she fought the instinct to bolt, to cry, to plead. She knew better. She knew that any sudden movement, any visible crack in her composure could make things even worse. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, calm and steady, drilled into her from childhood. Stay calm, stay polite, stay still. Your life could depend on it. So she stood there, the velvet tray before her, the fallen necklace glittering innocently on the floor like a weapon someone had planted at her feet. Patricia was still on the phone, her voice a syrupy mix of fear and indignation, painting Ariana as a cunning, dangerous threat. She repeated details with an exaggerated clarity. She's young, tall, wearing jeans and sneakers, acting very aggressive. Aggressive. Ariana hadn't moved. She hadn't spoken a word since asking to see the necklace. And yet, already, she could see the narrative hardening around her, solidifying like concrete, before she even had a chance to speak. She was no longer a teenage girl trying to buy her mother a birthday present. She was now a threat, a suspect, a problem to be neutralized. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe through the rising wave of fear and helpless fury. She glanced at the security guard, who was now standing a few feet away, arms crossed, body tense. His radio crackled softly at his hip, the static loud in the taut silence of the room. Patricia slammed the phone back into its cradle with a triumphant look, as if the act of summoning the police was some personal victory. She crossed her arms and stared at Ariana with a smirk that barely concealed her satisfaction. "You can try to deny it all you want," she sneered, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "But you're not fooling anyone. We know what you people come in here for." Ariana flinched as if struck. She clenched her fists at her sides, nails digging into her palms, willing herself not to cry, not to scream, not to let this woman have the satisfaction of seeing her break. The injustice of it all burned in her chest, but she kept her expression carefully neutral, her breathing shallow and steady. She was alone here, and she knew it. Outside, faintly at first, then growing louder, came the sound of sirens. The sharp wail pierced the air, drawing every head in the store toward the front windows. The security guard's radio crackled again, a voice murmuring about responding units, about backup on the way. Patricia straightened her blazer, tossing her hair over her shoulder, her expression one of smug anticipation. Ariana stood motionless as the heavy weight of inevitability settled over her. The sirens drew closer, a grim countdown she could not stop. The narrative had already been written, and she had been cast in a role she had not chosen and could not escape. In the gleaming heart of Hamilton Jewelers, beneath chandeliers that threw rainbows across the polished floors, a teenage girl stood accused not by action or evidence, but by presumption, by prejudice, by the quiet, poisonous power of someone's snap judgment. And somewhere deep inside her, even as the fear clawed at her throat, Ariana vowed that no matter what happened next, no matter how they tried to define her in this moment, she would not let it break her. The sirens screamed louder until they filled every corner of the polished store. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Ariana caught sight of two police cruisers pulling sharply into the parking lot, their lights flashing vivid red and blue across the clean brick buildings of Brentwood's shopping center. A couple passing by outside stopped to watch, their curious faces already forming conclusions about what they thought was happening inside. Ariana pressed her lips together, forcing herself to breathe, forcing herself to stand still as the glass doors swung open with a loud, jarring chime. Two officers stepped inside, their presence heavy, immediate, as though they were bracing for a threat. Officer Todd Myers, tall, broad, white, with a trimmed mustache and a hand resting conspicuously on the baton at his hip, scanned the store in one sweeping motion. Beside him, Officer Jenna Lowe, younger and slightly more cautious, followed close behind, her eyes flickering quickly between Ariana, Patricia, and the other silent customers, frozen mid-breath. Patricia pounced first, her voice trembling with exaggerated fear. "That's her!" she shrieked, jabbing a manicured finger at Ariana as if she were unmasking a fugitive. "She tried to steal the necklace. I caught her red-handed before she could run off." Ariana's stomach twisted as Officer Myers immediately advanced toward her, the same wariness in his posture that one might reserve for someone genuinely dangerous. He didn't ask questions, he didn't pause. He simply reached for the cuffs clipped to his belt as Patricia stood nearby, arms folded with a smirk of grim satisfaction curling at her lips. "Hands where I can see them," Myers barked, his voice hard and unyielding. "I didn't do anything," Ariana said, her voice low but steady, despite the fear roiling inside her chest. "It fell. I was just looking at it." "Save it," Myers snapped, waving for her to turn around. "You can explain it downtown." Ariana caught Officer Lowe's gaze briefly. There was something hesitant there, a flicker of doubt. But it wasn't enough. Lowe didn't stop her partner. She didn't say anything at all. As Ariana turned slowly, her hands trembling slightly, the store's other customers finally began to murmur. A woman near the watches section clutched her designer handbag tighter. A man by the entrance shook his head in disgust, not at the injustice unfolding before him, but at the story he had already told himself about the girl in the hoodie standing handcuffed in a jewelry store. Patricia's eyes gleamed with vindication as Myers cuffed Ariana's wrists too tightly, the metal cold and unyielding against her skin. She tried to keep her face blank, tried not to show the sting of the cuffs digging into her bones, tried not to show the humiliation rising in her throat like a scream. "You people never learn," Patricia muttered just loud enough for Ariana to hear. Ariana bit the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste blood, willing herself not to react. She knew what they were waiting for, an outburst, a struggle, something they could use to justify what they had already done. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Myers radioed in that they had a suspect detained. Lowe shifted awkwardly beside him, glancing once at the fallen necklace still lying innocently on the ground where it had landed, untouched, unhidden, in plain sight. But still, neither of them bent down to inspect it. Neither of them asked Ariana what had really happened. Patricia's voice, dripping with false bravado, cut through the charged silence. "I tried to warn her," she said to no one in particular. "Tried to give her a chance to walk away. But they think they're entitled to anything they want." The word they cracked through Ariana's mind like a whip. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the cold certainty of her reality settle like lead in her chest. In Patricia's world, Ariana had never stood a chance, not with her hoodie, not with her brown skin, not with the quiet determination she had carried into the store like a fragile, beautiful hope. And then, over the low crackle of the police radio, came the sound that changed everything. The heavy thrum of tires pulling into the parking lot once more, the unmistakable slam of a car door, and then, a voice, sharp, commanding, slicing through the stillness like a blade. "Officers, release my daughter, immediately." Heads whipped toward the entrance. Standing framed in the doorway was a woman whose very posture radiated authority. Olivia Foster, tall and composed in a navy blue pantsuit, her FBI badge held aloft, her jaw set with a fury so tightly controlled it was almost more terrifying than if she had been shouting. Officer Myers froze, his hands still resting on Ariana's cuffed wrists. Officer Lowe stepped back instinctively, her face flushing with sudden, dawning horror. Patricia's mouth opened in stunned disbelief, her voice caught somewhere between a protest and a whimper. Olivia strode into the store with the easy, predatory grace of someone who was used to walking into chaos and immediately taking charge. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. The sheer force of her presence filled every inch of the glittering store, commanding attention, demanding respect. "I said," Olivia repeated, her voice low, dangerous, "uncuff her. Now." Officer Myers's face twisted in confusion and resistance. "Ma'am, this young lady was—" "You will address me as Agent Foster," Olivia snapped, cutting across his words like a whip crack. "And this young lady is my daughter, Ariana Foster. She has committed no crime. She was purchasing a necklace for her mother. And if you don't release her this second, you in this store will be facing a lawsuit so fast you won't know what hit you." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, stiffly, grudgingly, Myers unlocked the handcuffs, the metallic click sounding unnaturally loud in the heavy silence. Ariana pulled her wrists back slowly, rubbing them gently, her face pale but her back still straight, her head still high. Olivia turned her gaze toward Patricia, her eyes glinting with cold fury. "Is there security footage?" she demanded. The manager, who had been standing frozen behind a counter, stumbled forward, nodding frantically. "Yes, Agent Foster. We have footage." "Good," Olivia said, her tone pure steel. "Pull it up, now." 10 agonizing minutes later, the security footage played on a small monitor behind the counter. There it was, Ariana entering, speaking politely, pulling out her wallet, showing her cash, handling the necklace with care, and then the bracelet slipping from her fingers, falling, not stolen, not hidden, not anything except a simple accident. The truth was undeniable. The silence that followed was suffocating. Patricia stood there, stiff and pale, her lips pressed together so tightly they had turned white. Officer Myers shifted uncomfortably beside Lowe, whose face was burning with shame. Olivia didn't say "I told you so." She didn't need to. She simply turned to Ariana, brushing her daughter's hair back gently, inspecting the red marks on her wrists. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet enough that only Ariana could hear. "You handled yourself perfectly," she said. "I'm proud of you." Ariana swallowed hard, blinking back the stinging tears gathering in her eyes. Then Olivia turned back to the officers and Patricia, her voice sharp once more. "Expect a formal complaint, and a press inquiry, and a full federal investigation into this store's discriminatory practices." Patricia opened her mouth, a desperate excuse already forming, but Olivia silenced her with a single, cutting glance. As she guided Ariana toward the door, Olivia paused just long enough to look back at the store, at the stunned faces still watching them go. Her voice carried across the marble floor, clear and final. "You judged her before she even spoke. You saw only what you wanted to see. And today, the whole world is going to see you for what you are." And with that, mother and daughter walked out into the spring afternoon, heads high, leaving the broken facade of Hamilton Jewelers crumbling behind them. Outside, the sun still shone warmly, the breeze brushing gently against Ariana's cheeks as she stepped into the open air. For a moment, the world outside felt too bright, too normal, as if the humiliation she had just endured should have left some kind of mark on everything around her. But it hadn't. People still walked their dogs, chatted over coffee, and admired shop windows, unaware of the storm that had just raged inside Hamilton Jewelers. Ariana inhaled deeply, the spring air crisp in her lungs, trying to shake off the weight that clung to her shoulders. Her mother's hand rested gently on her back, steady and reassuring. They walked silently toward the parking lot, the rhythmic click of Olivia's heels against the pavement grounding Ariana as she struggled to find her composure again. It wasn't until they reached Olivia's car, a sleek black sedan parked near the entrance, that either of them spoke. Olivia opened the passenger door and waited until Ariana slid inside before closing it carefully behind her. She moved around to the driver's seat, slipping behind the wheel with calm precision. For a few beats they just sat there, the engine off, the quiet humming between them. "You did everything right," Olivia said finally, her voice firm but gentle. "You stayed calm, you protected yourself, you remembered who you are." Ariana pressed her lips together, her hands resting on her lap, fingers twisting absently in the fabric of her jeans. "It didn't matter," she whispered. "They saw what they wanted to see." Olivia reached over, resting a hand lightly over Ariana's. "It mattered to me," she said, "and it matters because you didn't let them define you." For a long moment Ariana stared at her hands, remembering the way Patricia had looked at her, the way Officer Myers had snapped the cuffs on without hesitation, the way the other customers had silently watched. Part of her wanted to scream, to demand why she had to be the one to rise above when it was their ignorance that dragged her down. But another part of her, The part her mother had carefully nurtured for years understood the quiet kind of strength it took to stand tall when the world tried to pull you down. "I just wanted to buy her something nice," Ariana said, her voice breaking slightly, "for everything she's done for me." Olivia squeezed her hand gently. "You will," she said, "but not from them." The promise in her voice was enough to make Ariana look up, blinking back the sting of tears. Olivia's eyes were steady, fierce with a protectiveness that no amount of injustice could ever shake. Then Olivia started the engine, her movements smooth and deliberate. As they pulled away from the curb, Ariana glanced once over her shoulder at Hamilton Jewelers. Through the spotless glass, she could see Patricia still standing behind the counter, her arms crossed, her face tight with barely concealed anger. Other employees moved around her awkwardly, casting sidelong glances, as if realizing too late that everything had changed. Ariana turned back to face the road ahead. She didn't need anything from that store anymore. Not their jewelry, not their approval, not their apology. What she needed, she already had sitting beside her. Someone who believed in her worth without conditions. Someone who fought battles for her but also taught her how to fight her own. As they merged onto the main road, Olivia reached for her phone, pressing a single button to call someone. "Deputy Director Daniels," she said when the line connected. "This is Special Agent Foster. I have a situation to report involving discriminatory practices at a business in Brentwood. I'd like to request immediate civil rights review." She spoke clearly, precisely, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Ariana listened quietly, a small ember of something fierce sparking to life inside her chest. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, not if her mother had anything to say about it. As Olivia ended the call, she shot a glance at Ariana and smiled slightly. "We're not just walking away," she said. "They will answer for what they did." Ariana nodded, feeling a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying begin to lift just a little. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind the Brentwood skyline, local news outlets would pick up the story. The footage from the store's security cameras, released after Olivia's insistence, would show clearly that Ariana had done nothing wrong. Headlines would spread across social media within hours. "Black teen wrongfully accused at upscale jeweler. FBI official demands accountability." People would talk. Some would apologize. Others would make excuses. But for Ariana Foster, the real victory wasn't in the noise that followed. It was in knowing that no matter how the world chose to see her, she would never again question her own worth. And as the car carried them home, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, Ariana leaned back in her seat, her hands finally unclenched, her heart finally steady. She had been seen, she had been heard, and above all, she had stood her ground. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful moments of courage, justice, and hope. Turn on notifications so you won't miss a single inspiring story that reminds us all of the strength found in truth.